Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for joining me today. Greatly appreciate it. If you're new here, thank you so much for joining me as well. My name is Scott. So 13th Colony is back in the news, and I think back in the news with a big release. This time with their newest release and something that a lot of us have been asking for. This is their newest small batch cask strength bourbon. Their first time releasing this bourbon at cask strength outside of any special releases. We're going to chat a little bit about that today on the My Bourbon Journey Whiskey Review channel. So let's go ahead and dive into this today. So again, I'm super excited for this. I think with all the traction that 13th Colony has had over the past couple years, especially with their releases of their two double oaks, that was a bourbon or bourbons that really put them on the map. Now a lot of us have been asking for, hey, can we get a cask strength bourbon that's just kind of more of a standard-ish kind of release, as much as they're able to produce something that is a standard product? Well, we're going to be talking a little bit about this one today. And again, at around 7,500 bottles, give or take. This, again, as I had mentioned, is their newest release, their cask strength bourbon. This was coming in at 120.64 proof. It's non-age dated, but they're using barrels between the ages of 5 and 7 years old. So good ages, especially from a whiskey coming from the state of Georgia. Mash bill on this is 70% corn, 21% rye, 9% malted barley. And actually has a pretty darn incredible MSRP at right around $90. This one's going to come and go as soon as it hits any shelf or any type of distribution. Again, like I mentioned, it's been a bottle that we've all been asking for from 13th Colony. Now we've got it. Let's see exactly what this one's going to nose and taste like. All right, first, let's go ahead and take a look at the color. As you'd expect, kind of a beautiful burnt orange, kind of medium to darker type of copper color on this one. Again, moving the whiskey around in the glass a little bit. Beautiful oils, as you'd expect. Non-chill filtered. So let's go ahead and nose this and see what we're gonna get. Whew, beautiful brown sugar notes right off the bat. That heavy kind of like vanilla custard. I mean, it feels very thick, rich, dense, all of that so far. Beautiful sweet oak. And again, there's also one of these things that I get a little bit of that kind of pecan shell type of note. There's that slight kind of dryness, leather, tobacco. Something that's just a familiar note that you pick up from some of their whiskeys. It's just kind of more of that, like I mentioned, kind of pecan note, something along those lines. Yeah, if I had to kind of say or mix a little bit of that together, it feels more like kind of like a chocolate pecan pie. You do get a little bit of that kind of chocolate note, the pecans, all of that kind of custardy stuff that makes up the pecan pie, a little bit of that pie crust, really everything that makes up a chocolate pecan pie. It feels like you're getting it in this nose so far. Touch of a little orange zest that's there. Definitely picking up some of the barrel char notes the more I kind of nose this. More of that vanilla custard kind of coming out. Again, those heavy brown sugars. A little bit of kind of like a slight maple syrup note on that. But more importantly, let's see how this one's going to taste. Cheers. Man, so the spice on this thing immediately is incredible. Wasn't picking up a lot of the big heavy spice on the nose, but it is definitely spice driven. And like I had mentioned before, that chocolate pecan pie, this feels like from the nose to now the palate, feels extremely kind of in that camp. Like it is very much that. So as you kind of break that down, you've got those chocolate notes, more of that pecan, little bit of that like what you get within like a pecan pie, that kind of custardy sweetness, whatever all that goodness is. This feels a lot like that chocolate pecan pie. Absolutely wonderful. I love those brown sugars, more of that maple. This feels like a bourbon where the nose and palate are just in line perfectly. You're getting all of those same type of attributes that you were getting on the nose all the way through now onto the palate. So I pick up a little bit more of these darker fruit notes, maybe a little bit more of like a dark or a black cherry, more of those kind of heavy, like almost feels like some rum soaked like raisins, something along those lines. There's a little bit of that kind of richness that you'd get from a rum with that sweetness, maybe a little bit of that brown sugar, molasses, great spice, chocolate pecan pie. Just a beautiful, beautiful whiskey so far. Incredible proof, again, at that 120 plus proof. It is like spot on. It's drinking exactly like that. Coats the mouth extremely well, viscous, oily, extremely long finish. The spice definitely ramps up the longer the bourbon kind of sits on the palate, so that spice continues to linger, all while having, again, that chocolate pecan pie as the kind of dominant tasting note for me with this bourbon. It's just lingering for days and days. Buttery, a lot of pastry notes. It almost feels a little bit like the pastry part of it being like a really rich, like almost shortbread, something along those lines, all combined with everything that you get from a chocolate pecan pie. I mean, I think that's all that you really need to know for this bourbon. It is absolutely fantastic. Those kind of lingering fruit notes. Again, like I mentioned before, a little bit of a feel of like a rum-soaked raisin, maybe a little bit of that kind of dark or like a black cherry, something along those lines. Just overall, a beautiful, beautiful kind of flavor profile that this has, and just feels like a bourbon that you could sit down with, enjoy simply on its own, or if you're somebody who really enjoys cigars, I think this would be a great bourbon to pair with a cigar, just because of the profile of this. If you find a cigar that matches that pretty well, I think you're in for one heck of an evening with this bourbon. Now the big thing is, were you one of the lucky ones to get one of the approximately 7,500 bottles that were released from 13th Colony of their cask strength bourbon? If so, leave a comment below. Let me know your experience with it. Let everybody else know your experience with it. I think people coming to watch these videos appreciate, hopefully, my opinion, but would like to hear maybe from you guys and ladies as well. So I think it's important for you to leave that, even more so for the people kind of coming to watch the video. So overall, an absolutely incredible bourbon, and I'm glad that they finally decided to put a few barrels together and blend this thing up. I mean, it is absolutely fantastic, and what their head distiller Graham did, absolutely amazed by what he did with this one. So kudos to Graham for putting together another fantastic release. So there you go. Hopefully you are, again, one of the lucky ones that got one of these bottles. If so, congratulations on that. You're in for one heck of a bourbon journey, so to speak. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you'd like to follow me, you can on Facebook and Instagram, all of those places at My Bourbon Journey. If you'd like to help support the channel and become part of the Mash and Journey Whiskey Club, make sure you check out the Patreon link in the description below. That down there, along with other great things for you as well. Thank you again for joining today, and remember, it's about the journey and not the destination. Cheers.